Hey, Joe Mastriano, CPA. Checking my volume here. Yeah, that's good. Um, Today's video is your tax preparer will get you audited. Happens all the time. I've had my business since CPA firm since 1980 when I was 25. I've done thousands of cases, many audit representations, and what happens is people go to these tax preparers, and I've even seen some CPAs and law firms do this, and they hand it to juniors, and they concentrate on filling out the form properly. And I have to admit, taxes have gotten more complicated since 1975 when I first started doing tax returns. And now we have programs, but what happens is these programs are set up so that people just put the information in and they let the program calculate the tax, and they know very, very little about accounting and taxes. Big mistake, because you as the taxpayer think you're getting, quality help. Those of you that go to these national tax companies and not a professionally licensed CPA firm or law firm, you guys know that you're taking a big risk. Some of you don't, um, just to save a couple $100. And the funny thing is, I know some CPAs now that are hungry enough that they charge less than some of these national tax companies, and it'd be foolish not to have quality help on your return. So what I've found over the years, and it's still true to this day, which is amazing, and it's getting more true because people are less educated now, and they rely on the IRS and they rely on computers, and it's pretty funny in my opinion. People come to me from all walks of life. They could be doctors, they could be lawyers, they could be accountants, and they give me their tax return, and they have no understanding whatsoever about the rules involved, that the auditors require to document evidence. In fact, I've seen cases where actors and actresses, and they've hired these very expensive lawyers. Even Donald Trump, for example. Um, I've heard from Michael Cohen, the guy who helped him with his tax return, the attorney, that he took land that was part of a golf course, but it was in an unkept area that barely had any use, and that he valued it the same as the price of land that was actually part of the working part of the golf course, and he would donate it, and he would take like $1 million deduction for it. Now, of course, I know very well that the issue of highest use and value comes into play, but if it's land that there's no way it can be converted to part of the actual golf course, then it's not going to have that value. In fact, I've had arguments over the years with appeals over the value of things like African art. I've had one client that had somebody at one of the universities give him a valuation letter. And the funny thing is, if you bought that art, that's the value of it. You don't buy art for $10,000 and the value is 100,000. People would be crazy to sell you $100,000 worth of art for only $10,000. But people will try to get away with things. So those are the things that I fight. But you have to avoid the audit in the first place. So the way to avoid the audit, I have my 4-part checklist that I use. And the first thing, and some of these might be controversial because people out there don't have their interests at heart, don't have your interests at heart. They have their interests at heart first. And so you will hear each tax season on the news and from the IRS. There used to be a jingle: file early, please file early. Well, don't file early. It's against you. You're going to be audited. I recommend that people file an extension and file a few days before the end of the extension date, which is roughly October 15th, so a few days before that. Why? Two main reasons. Most returns get selected for audit prior to that. And number two, excuse me, you will have to get the wage and income transcript, which usually doesn't settle till September, which is number two. Do not file a return unless you know what the IRS has on you. That's the wage and income transcript. We pull that for clients. A lot of firms don't get it. They make the assumption that their clients don't want to pay to get a power of attorney on file, or they're not set up to do it, and get the transcripts. The wage and income transcript is a list of all third party payer information, W 2s, 1099s, K1s, things that third parties report to the IRS concerning your tax situation. If you fail that matching program, there's a good chance you'll be audited. Another thing is having to list it item by item. I still see, and this comes from accounting firms too, they'll take 5 1099s, add them together if you're self employed, and put that total on the Schedule C. The IRS has no idea if you reported all your 1099s or if you didn't report any income at all. What we do is list each 1099 separately so they can match it up, and any income that was not on the 1099, then we list that separately as well. Excuse me. Um, Next item is e-file. Do not e-file. File a paper return. Why? Because you must explain things. You can't attach sheets, and it's designed that way. You can't attach separate sheets. Well, if you attach separate sheets and explain things, taxpayer understands that his vehicle expenses seem pretty high in relation to income. But here's why. And taxpayer understands the code and the regs and has a mileage log and can prove the business use of the vehicle. And taxpayer, of course, has another vehicle available for personal use. So if you file a paper return with attached explanations, you file a few days before the end of the extension date, and you get the wage and income statement from the IRS and to match things up, and you put the right explanations down, and you file, a few days before the end of the extension. We've been doing this in particular for, I don't know, more than 10 years, and I don't know one person to this date who's ever been audited when we've done that. Now, those explanations have to be carefully written, of course. I deal with auditors all the time. And even if you do that, the taxpayer still needs to understand what the evidence that's required for deductions. I haven't even touched income yet. They'll look at your bank statements and they'll make all your deposits income unless you can prove that they're not income. And so you have to be able to have the evidence and sort those out ahead of time. So if you get audited, you know how to respond. And still, a lot of people, their tax preparers say, just keep the receipts and invoices and you'll be fine. And again, they don't have the experience dealing with IRS auditors, so they don't know what to tell you. And then people come to me and they're being audited, especially contractors. Oh, I've got painting contractors, I've got sheetrock and home improvement contractors, home builders, a lot of individual, independent home builders. And what happens is they get slammed in the audit because they have no understanding of what's required. So it's extremely important that you have an understanding of what's on your return and what evidence is needed to back it up. And also that the person who prepares the return has experience in these matters enough to educate you properly and to apply my 4-part checklist. I've been doing this for over 40 years, thousands of cases and returns, or thousands of cases, period, returns. That goes without saying. Call Stephanie if you need help, 713-774-4467. And we'll put you on our email list too, so I could send you copies of these videos. You could subscribe to my channel. And the idea is never to be in the dark about the IRS again. Thank you.